What if you found a new way of watching your favourite show? The plot and the characters are the same, but the meaning is completely different. And what if the way you thought about movies was never the same again? Are you willing to take that chance? Welcome to Abstract Nonsense, the Fan Theories and Alternate Readings podcast. My name is Joe Lewis, and I'm joined by Anthony Bull, and today we're talking about alternate theories on the subject of the well-beloved family sitcom Frasier.
Yes.
What are your favourite fan theories of Frasier? And we're going to talk about all that and more on today's episode. So, just to give us a little bit of a window into the world of Frasier, is Frasier a show that you grew up with, Anthony?
It is. It is a show I grew up with. It's a show that appeared every off season of Sale of the Century on Channel 9. So, whenever that wasn't on, you'd be watching Frasier, and it was arguably one of the best shows, or at least sitcoms, on television in the 90s.
Anthony and I are both Australian, as you can tell from our accents, or maybe you couldn't. Maybe you thought we were English. Who knows? But we do live in Australia, and one of the main channels here, Channel 9 television channels, did air Frasier almost every night. I think there were maybe reruns at that point. We're talking about early 2000s, late 90s.
Yeah, I think they ran new episodes at around 7:30 or something, but most of the time was 7 o'clock, so it was old episodes.
And so Frasier was something that, like you and I, pretty much every Australian grew very accustomed to, much like The Simpsons.
Yes.
And you seeing so much of a show, you could mention something or make an offhanded joke and people would get it.
Yeah.
Frasier is, of course, for those who don't know, a show about a psychiatrist who used to sit around in a bar in Chicago, I think, from Cheers. He is, of course, a character from Cheers. And he moves to Seattle for a new life and starts his new life there where his brother lives, Niles. And then eventually his dad has a fall and needs to live with someone else. And instead of putting him in a home, the idea is that he will join Frasier and live in his apartment. Frasier is, of course, a very civilized man, a very pompous man, and he's joined by his blue-collar dad, and then later his dad's, blue-collar physiotherapist, British physiotherapist, and their dog.
Yeah.
And they have adventures.
It's about that, the class struggle, if you will.
Yes. And so we're going to get straight into some fan theories. And do you want to start us off, Anthony, or should we take one from some of the listeners?
Look, I think we can take one from a listener.
This is a very specific one. So this one comes from Gareth, and this was sent to us over Facebook on the Abstract Theories Facebook page. And he says, in Season 1, Episode 4, Daphne mentions that Frasier might be a killer.
Oh, yeah.
So she has this thing going where she's psychic. And now I watched a lot of Frasier to try and re-immerse myself in the world. But I couldn't watch all of it to prepare for the show, so I watched about 7 episodes. This specific episode, Frasier's dad is working on a case, and Daphne thinks she can help because she thinks she's psychic, at least in the first season. She picks up a photo of the crime scene, which I don't know why she's allowed, but she says, and she starts describing the killer. And it's very similar to Frasier, and then he enters the scene.
Yeah.
The theory that comes from Gareth is that, is she actually correct? And is Frasier some sort of serial killer this entire time?
Well, he could be. It's not unheard of. I mean, why wouldn't he be maybe a serial killer?
Is that the best you can do?
Well, what else am I supposed to say?
Well, we can talk about the implications. We can talk about anything instead of just fobbing me off.
All right, well...
Fobbing Gareth off, more to the point.
All right, well, I'm sorry, Gareth, but I don't think your theory makes any sense. Because how many other people has he killed? Because if he's a serial killer...
maybe just a killer.
A killer.
Yeah.
So, if he's a killer, that's just one part of the episode. Maybe he is a killer.
Yeah, so he's killed someone.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking, right? Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. But there's a couple of different angles to that as well. Is Daphne actually psychic?
Yeah, that's a good theory. Is she actually psychic?
Because one is, I think the correct reading is she's just like a ditzy person that's sometimes accurate. A broken clock is right twice a day. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But, what if she is psychic? And maybe some sort of psychic connection has brought her to this house. Because it's kind of a series of coincidences that she ends up living with the Cranes, one of which is that she thinks it's a full-time live-in position when actually Frasier's only advertised for a part-time position. Is this a psychic drawing in? Is there some sort of psychic energy around Frasier that has drawn Daphne to her? Maybe it's his killing.
Maybe his killing fills up his psychic reservoir, sort of thing.
What are you saying?
I'm saying...
I mentioned something and you branch off completely. So you're saying that he's psychic as well and he needs to kill people.
Well, you're saying that he's got serial killer energy or something. He's got energy that draws Daphne.
Saying his guilt draws Daphne.
Oh, well, you didn't say his guilt draws Daphne.
Well,
you said his psychic energy.
I was about to say that before you
said,
cut me off.
What is some energy? I'm like, well, if you're talking about psychic, I'm pretty sure people go, oh, I mean his psychic energy, like his fucking powers or something, you know?
He's a ley line. He's a walking ley line.
He's a walking ley line because of the aliens and stuff, yo. And because he's near the Seattle... He's up on a building. Maybe it's like a giant antenna. It projects his power even further than if he was on the ground. It's an all right theory, I'm going to say. Not a great one, but it's okay.
Okay. And the other one is maybe Daphne is actually secretly CIA and she's here to catch Frasier in the act.
Yeah, that one.
When he kills again.
Well, okay, that one's still based on the killer theory again, but...
All right, that's going nowhere fast.
Well, what if he's... I don't know, because maybe she's actually British Secret Service.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe she's keeping an eye on Americans. Maybe she's actually a spy for England. And she's just... That's her role, is to just keep... Because remember, there is an episode of Frasier where she's not allowed to leave the country, right?
Yeah.
Where they end up in Canada because they rent a Winnebago and... The whole family, they go into Canada.
I thought they bought a Winnebago and
they bought it, that's right, yeah.
And Road Warrior.
And it's Road Warrior, that's the thing, that's correct. And Daphne's really scared. Oh no, she's got a green card. She's not allowed to leave the United States.
Yeah.
And she's in Canada. What's odd is that, would that really be a huge issue for a British citizen? I mean, if she's a British citizen and she has a green card, you could probably argue it's not great and ideal, but I still think it's part of the Commonwealth. I'm pretty sure there's still free movement. There is actually a proposed free movement of people, or at least some freer movement of people for Commonwealth countries such as Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and the UK. So why would it matter?
Yeah, I guess maybe that wasn't in place at that point.
But if you knew Daphne Moon, right, she's not supposed to be there. Her spy coverage, that will be blown. She doesn't actually have a green card. She has this fake passport. She has all this stuff to get her into the country because she's watching America. And of course, if she gets spotted, at the border, she'll get put into processing. She's not supposed to be here. Yeah. Who are you?
Interesting.
That's a theory, I guess. Yeah, I like Gareth's theory. We're turning it from a CIA mate. We're going to turn it into British Secret Service agent.
Thanks, Gareth. That was an interesting one. I've got another one here.
Yep.
Well, this is one that I came up with. Okay.
Yep.
So I know that you're going to love this one.
Okay.
I know. I'll be very surprised if you didn't come up with something similar. Okay. So in the show, there's a lot of tension between Niles and Frasier's dad.
Yeah.
Okay? And Niles and Frasier are a little bit fabulous, pompous, flamboyant, maybe.
No, I can already see where you're going with this. And I haven't come up with this theory, but I'm liking it.
I was watching the show and I was like, what if, being early 2000s, late 90s, whenever Frasier was made, what if they were very progressive, right? And they wanted to make a show about two gay lovers, but they couldn't do it. So everything, the way that we see the show is coded. Niles doesn't get along very well with Frasier's dad because Frasier's dad obviously doesn't really approve, and Niles is a very annoying character.
Yeah.
That's why his dad doesn't go and stay with Niles, because they're not actually related. They're just in this kind of semi-secret relationship that's happening.
Yeah.
You never see Maris, Niles' wife, because she doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Or she's, somewhat of a beard. He doesn't like hanging out with her that much because he's too busy hanging out with Frasier.
Yeah.
They're psychiatrists. They probably met at college. They hooked up. That's what partially caused Frasier's divorce.
Oh, and they refer to each other as brothers because when people want to know what's their story, they don't say that they're lovers. They say they're brothers because that's more acceptable in early 90s culture.
Yep.
No, I could buy that theory.
They go on a lot of dates together. They go and see the opera. They go to fancy dinners.
Now that you're saying that, they do a lot of things together that could constitute dates if they weren't brothers.
The only thing that doesn't quite fit here is the Niles and Daphne.
Also,
Niles is overly over the top in love with Daphne. Maybe that's just his overcompensating.
Or it could be as well, what's her name? Not Maris, who's Frasier's ex-wife.
The name will come to me in a second. Yeah, Lilith,
right.
Yeah.
Niles has an affair with Lilith throughout at one stage, and so does Frasier. So there is some thing. Maybe they're actually semi-bi, because I imagine that Frasier's I have a picture from this theory that Frasier was in the closet during Cheers, right?
Yep.
With I forget her name now. Lilith. With Lilith, which shouldn't be hard to forget because she's basically like, it's not like the devil. Isn't that the name of the devil is Lilith?
Lucifer?
Lilith? I thought Lilith was... Oh, Lilith... No, Lilith was in Adam and Eve, was the first bride of Adam, according to, like, Judeo-mysticism.
Wait, first bride of Adam?
Yeah. Okay, so but a bit off the chart here, but just in the... It's like Apocrypha scripture.
Yeah.
Lilith is actually the first wife of Adam, created first. Then she's sent away because Adam doesn't like her. And then Adam marries Eve. Or Adam gets Eve.
And where does Lilith go?
She roams across the earth, working for Satan, killing babies.
Okay.
So when babies are born and they die during birth, it's said that Lilith caused that.
Horrifying image.
Horrifying image. Anyway, he's in the closet with Lilith. He still has a child with her because that's not uncommon, right? He then comes out of the closet, which is funny because Lilith actually mentions this to it about her future husband, okay? She says, it's ironic that when we got our closet remodeled that he came out of it. He's talking about his new husband.
Yes.
So maybe that's an indicator to Frasier as well. Like, she picks up people like this. Obviously, she thinks that they're straight. Turns out they're not, and they come out of the closet. Maybe that's what happened with Frasier.
Sure.
But there's still some issues. Maybe she actually doesn't really like Frasier because, sure, they broke up, but he put Lilith through this decade-long relationship that wasn't going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
So she's a little bitter. And it's also kind of hurt the family for his son because it's kind of destroyed the family structure. So it's kind of hurt him. So maybe that's why she's a little bit vindictive. She still cares about him as a father of her son. But obviously, there's some issues there. Maybe that's it. I like this. I like this theory. Maybe they are gay.
I thought you'd like that one.
Yeah, it's good. But of course, then again, the issue is he marries Daphne in the end, doesn't he?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so... But who knows how that works. But I feel
maybe that might be a legal thing. Like they're trying to get her whatever.
She's got a green card.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe that could be it. Because
trying to get her citizenship?
Maybe her green card is about to expire.
Yeah.
So, and they actually care about her. So, at some level, so they marry.
I imagine that's fairly common among gay people, right?
Yeah, I imagine so.
They marry their friends just to get them in.
And then at the end of the show, right, throughout the entire season, they finally break up. Niles and Frasier breaks up, and Frasier obviously has to because he's moving to Boston.
Yeah,
is it Boston or Chicago?
Okay,
because to start a new show. That's the last episode of Frasier. So I like that theory. That's good.
Have you got one in the bag?
I do. I have one in the bag, mate. I have some. One of them is that Frasier deals a lot with people with mental illnesses, but he doesn't realize that the people in Frasier themselves have aspects of those mental illnesses within his own life.
Okay.
Right? So you look at Frasier, okay? Frasier has some symptoms of histrionic personality disorder, okay? Okay,
that's an interesting name. Do you have any information on what that's actually about, or did you just make it up?
Some of the symptoms are, they have a constant need to seek approval, right, and reassurance. They have excessive sensitivity to criticism. Okay? Their inappropriately seductive appearance or behavior of a sexual nature. If you ever seen him in a lift, you ever see the lift episode? They have sex in the lift. Frasier has this weird sort of tries to be seductive to women sometimes. It's really weird, right, throughout the entire show. Yeah. And I think it's played up as a joke. There's a low tolerance for frustration.
Yep.
Overly dramatic and emotional, and makes rash decisions. As a couple of other symptoms say, but there are aspects of histrionic personality disorder in Frasier's life. I mean, I'm not saying that these are, like, he would be clinically diagnosed with this, but this is something that a therapist should be talking Frasier through. And it's ironic that he talks to people through his problems, but he doesn't see the problems in his own life.
Sure.
Right? You go to Niles, dependent personality disorder, right? Which is basically, he needs help all the time. He relies on someone else. His self-worth is incredibly linked to someone else. And then who is this someone else?
Frasier?
Maris.
Oh.
He's always talking about Maris. He's always reliant on Maris. He's relying on her for her money. He's relying on her for her status. Relying on her for excuses, right? And he has a very low self-worth when she does something wrong. He never wants to upset her. And that's a part of that condition as well. This is something that, obviously, a therapist should be talking to Niles about. But, again, Niles is a therapist.
Well, I don't know. Again, I don't think that these are fairly absurd theories, because these are pretty much taken, right? That's the idea of the show, that these are people with problems helping people with problems. They're psychiatrists that have their own issues.
I don't think so. I think that it's done as a unique personality traits, just of them. But it's not considered to be more deeper mental health issues, because I don't think back in the 90s this was necessarily as forward-thinking when it comes to mental illness, right? You were either crazy or you weren't back then.
I don't know if 90s is prehistoric.
Okay, so it wasn't crazy, but it was far more rigid in its classification than today, where you could see a therapist and you might have aspects of obsessive compulsive disorder, but it doesn't mean you have OCD.
There's diagnoses are a lot more fluid these days.
Yeah.
That's true. There's a pretty much diagnosis for everything.
Yeah. So I'll just finish off the list. You've got Maris with avoidant personality disorder, right?
Okay.
She is very sensitive to rejection and criticism, has a very low self-esteem, deals with social isolation, uses her self-esteem and her lack of perceived image to get out of social situations. I don't think I need to go into that, but I think obviously she's never seen, and most of the time it's because she doesn't like the way she looks.
Okay.
Okay. Daphne is a little bit delusional.
Sure.
Which obviously,
psychic thing.
She thinks she's psychic. She thinks she's connected to the world. She's got this tapping in, right? That means that's not terrible, but obviously untreated. And if it went worse, there could be some serious issues. And lastly, Martin has potentially early symptoms of Alzheimer's. He's a little bit forgetful. He's a bit aggressive, a bit annoyed and angry. Basically, age is an example of it. If you forget a little bit or you become a bit senile, as Martin can be, that isn't normal. That's actually a symptom of early symptoms of Alzheimer's. So all these people are there, but none of the characters, the important one, Frasier especially, picks this up. But if they were to call up on the radio show, just like in the first episode, he would be able to diagnose and give advice.
Is there a reason for that? Maybe there's a reason why Frasier can't actually diagnose people in real life.
Easy, because a plumber's pipes are always plumber's pipes are always leaking.
Okay, why is that?
So it's an old saying, or something similar to it, which is that a plumber cannot fix his own pipes because he's so busy fixing everyone else's pipes. So once he finishes for his day job, he's not able to do his own plumbing because it's like that task is something that he doesn't have time for. He's got to do his own. He's got to do other people's work. He has to take care of people on the media through his own job. He doesn't have time or patience or the ability to just boil down people's personalities into simple mental illness or mental health checks that they should do. So maybe that might be it. He's so busy at work. He's so preoccupied with his own. And remember, he's got histrionic personality disorder. He might have aspects of it. Yeah. Right? He's so up himself that he couldn't see problems with himself or his family because that's an aspect of him, right?
Yeah.
The Cranes are great. Us Crane boys.
All right. I believe you've got another one ready to go.
Yep.
Lay it on us.
Maris doesn't exist.
Okay. Well, that's the obvious one.
That's the obvious one, right? Yeah.
Okay. And was that it?
So basically she's cold. She's ethereal. She's never seen. All right. I thought to myself, what if this is actually either an expression of Niles cross-dressing?
Oh, okay.
Or just a delusion. I'm going to go with the cross-dressing one because I feel like I've touched delusion enough. What if Maris is him cross-dressing? Okay. He talks about Maris and everyone talks about, Maris. The issue is the characters do reference the character of Maris, so she should be real. But I do like the idea, though, if Maris is like make-believe or not there, that the characters go, where is Maris? I can't see Maris. Whenever Niles says Maris is, oh, there's Maris, there she is. And the characters say, I can't see her. And they make a joke about how she's so thin. What if it's because they want to actually look at the character and not talk to the imaginary person who's not there in the wrong direction? So they'll say, I can't see Maris. Oh, there she is. She's so thin. She's so, she's so cold. And then they see the character, quote, rabbit ears.
It's Niles.
It's Niles, or it's just his delusion. And that's where he's projecting Maris is. That's why you never see her.
Okay, well, what are the implications of that? What does that mean for the rest of the characters if Niles is actively cross-dressing as Maris?
Well, if Niles is actively cross-dressing as Maris...
Well, while you're thinking, there's a great movie. It might be a little bit of spoilers, but there's a movie called Filth. That is semi-relevant, so go and check that one out if you're interested in this subject matter. There's fairly interesting things happening in that movie. What are the implications, Anthony? Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock.
You come up with... Do you have any implications? No, seriously, do you?
Throw the ball back.
Yeah, well, fucking, you're one looking for interpretations.
Yeah, I'm the host. This is how this works. I'm the host. I throw a question to you.
And I'm throwing it back.
I make up time. Yeah, what have you got?
Well, I'm throwing it back to you.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know.
Except you're going to throw the ball back to me.
Think about the flow of the podcast, Anthony.
Well, I'm trying to think about how this fits narratively.
Okay.
And I don't think...
All right, listen.
Well, what have we married the ideas? What have we married the ideas of them being gay, obviously, and Niles being a cross-dresser? Because they're not mutually exclusive identities.
No, they're not mutually exclusive.
And I just guess the relationship would be how he relates to Daphne at the end. Maybe that fits in there. I don't like the idea of the cross-dresser one. The reason why I said delusional is because when he picks up Daphne, Daphne becomes and fills the void that Maris had. Now, I always think Maris isn't a projection of Niles' mother.
Okay.
Cold, never there, very intellectual. She's referenced throughout as being that way. Something like a handshake is just as good as a hug, as Mum always said. That's just crazy. A mother should be loving, but she's not. She's cold, just like Maris. right? So she's looking for a motherly figure who doesn't actually exist, okay? When he picks up a relationship with Daphne, right, this motherly figure this perception of what a woman should be starts to fade. His delusion starts to disappear, right? Because he's also taking maybe some counseling, taking some therapy, and he's taking some drugs. Now he's actually able to get into a real relationship. He breaks up with Maris, who dies and never comes back, right?
Yep.
It's pretty clear that she doesn't die. She's just sent somewhere inexplicably, will never come back.
Yeah.
Okay? And in doing that, he replaces a fake wife or a fake woman with a real love interest.
Okay, so it's very much the Norman Bates thing.
Yeah. I think that's good. Yeah, that might actually be one as well. Yeah. Well, I think you're taking the crossdresser one. I'm taking the delusional perspective.
Well, it's the same thing, really.
Yeah.
He's so in love with this idea of this motherly figure that when she dies, he has to integrate her into himself.
Oh, yeah, because then he cross-dresses as her.
Yeah.
To try to feel, because it might be like, oh, Niles, blah, 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 blah. And expressing the love that he needs that he never got from his mother. But, of course, her mother still doesn't dish out much love. So even just a nice little touch of the hand is just as good as a hug from mum. Daphne comes in, shows him real love. All of a sudden, Maris starts to, it starts to be clear that Maris is not a good example of what love is, or the need can no longer be satisfied by his projection of Maris or the cross-dressing. So he doesn't feel a need to do it anymore. He's only done it because he wants to feel good about himself.
He wants Daphne to show me what love is.
Pretty much. As far as
he wants her to show him.
All over the face.
All over the... What?
You know what I'm saying.
I don't know what you're saying, Anthony. All right. So that's a good one.
I have a theory. I have another theory here from Brad.
Okay, cool.
And he got in touch with us through our website. He basically said, what if the show is really about fatherly love? Or a lack thereof, okay?
Okay.
Martin was a police officer, okay?
Yeah.
Martin was a police officer. He was never there. He was out on stings. He was kind of the father that was never there, never in the child's life. And that's why they instead of growing up as the children of the father, they sort of mirrored their mother. And they adopted these practices that further divided the father from the son. Because the father is very, very jockey, you could say, whereas the sons are very primpy and pompous. So there's going to be this big divide when they come to the time when Martin can hang out with his children.
Yeah.
Okay? So what it's actually about is two sons trying to reunite with their father and trying to seek approval from their father. I mean, you even see it, I think, in one episode when Niles dresses up as Frasier, right? So Niles dresses up as Martin. In a Halloween episode, he talks about how, my children, that you should have seen them, Martin, when they tried to throw a ball or something, they wouldn't be able to throw a ball. And Martin gets really upset at this because he's making fun of his children as if I never cared about my children.
Yeah.
And in that episode, he reveals, I was always proud of my children.
Yeah.
Right. So they're seeking this approval, and that's the whole point. That's where the whole conflict comes from. Is these different changes between the two people, and they're always seeking approval from one another.
I'm sorry, Greg, but this isn't really an alternate reading. That's just a reading.
Yeah, well, I mean,
that's what the show's about.
Well, it's some of it's about that.
Yeah.
Well,
it's also like there's a lot of fatherly stuff. Frasier's kind of a show like Lost, where everything's all about fathers. Lost was famously one of the episodes was even called "All the Best Cowboys Have Daddy Issues." Like every single character had an issue with their father. This show. It's very much like that, where Daphne, she is looking for a new family unit. She finds Martin as her father. Frasier and Niles obviously have father issues. Martin can't get over the fact that where he feels like he didn't do a good job as being a father because his sons turned out so different to what he expected. Even the dog, to a point, the dog is kind of representative of one of Frasier's children. And then there's his actual child, which he never sees.
Yeah. We only see him every so often.
Yeah, it's very clearly about fatherhood.
There's aspects of fatherhood within it, yeah.
I think if you want to go further than that, you need to bring in the idea of matriarchy or motherhood. The show's very interesting. It takes an interesting aspect on gender, and I'm kind of freeballing this a little bit, so feel free to chime in. But you've brought up the idea of fatherhood, but there's also very much this ever-present idea of the mother or the matriarch. And, Niles and Frasier very much identified with their mother more than they did their father. And it's kind of this blending of the two roles. Like their father took very much, at least now in their life, he's more of like a mother-type role, almost, kind of. Maybe that's reaching a little bit. And Roz is kind of like a mother to Frasier.
Yeah,
I don't know, am I getting any traction? There's kind of like this blurred dynamic between mothers and fathers.
Yep.
and gender. And I guess that's what you kind of picked up with your cross-dressing thing,
Yeah.
where these are very effeminate males and they're in these father or even mother positions.
Yeah, there might be an aspect of matriarchy, but I still think the father is far more important in this from the narrative point of view, because they never had an example of what it is to be a man growing up as a child, right?
Well, they did.
And they made them the person they are today.
They had they took their role model from their mother rather than their father. So their mother, they
Could it
took
be,
her as their
therefore,
role
a
model.
statement on modern single motherhood families?
I think it's just a statement on growing up more than anything.
Without
where do
without
you take
a
your gender role models from and how does this affect you growing up? Like, is it okay to be this flamboyant and still be, like a strong father? And yes, it is. There's no right and wrong way to grow up or to live. Right?
Yeah. But then there's the clash of obviously the different ways or different personalities brought about how you were raised. Even the show, like you've got Bulldog Brisco, who's very, very alpha male-y type of character, but is probably very insecure. Yeah. Chances are, maybe he didn't have much of a positive role model either. Maybe his father or his father figures were very chauvinistic for that reason. But again, it was just used to cover his insecurities. Because he's not actually super strong or confident. He's just confident so as to get female attention, because that's what he demands and craves. Without that, he's actually very insecure.
Sure. And I think that brings us to the point of the show, unless you have another one.
Nope.
Where we go to It's All in His Head. My favorite segment, the show, we think about how this show could have been all in somebody's head or in a dream or a coma or something, and try and rationalize that in its world. So the one that I had was that in the opening scene, okay, Frasier, episode 1, he's kind of having this big tangent. He's talking about his new life. He's moved to Seattle. He's on the phone. He's talking to one of the listeners. He's having a big ramble. When he's finished, he goes into the producer's room and he begins to talk with Ross.
Yeah.
His producer or audio engineer. I'm not sure what her official title is. And then she mentions in this conversation that somebody has called up and he spoke to somebody that had an identity disorder. This makes me think, does Frasier actually have dissociative identity disorder? Or what did we used to call it? Split personality?
Split personality.
Or, delusion. He's actually still living in Chicago, but because of everything has got to him so much with his wife, this whole depressive... he's had an episode, and now he's imagined for himself a new life in another city where everything is happening here. He's got a new life. He's a radio host. Why should just an ordinary psychiatrist be a radio host?
That's true. Because, actually...
He's not qualified for that.
There was actually something... I researched this. There was actually... I think it might be based on a person as well. Actually, this show might actually be based on a person. I can't remember his name. But it's actually an actual doctor who had a radio show throughout the 90s. But you're right. What psychiatrists generally will have a radio show? It's not unheard of, but it's a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got one for you. What if Martin's fall led him to have his coma? Now, we know Martin, right, loves to watch television, right?
Yep.
What if in his coma world, he actually imagines he's in a sitcom? Just like the shows he sees on television. But it's got his kids in there. So it's a different show because his kids are pompous. They wouldn't be that but they're also slapsticky because that's a part of the show. Maybe they're very intellectual, maybe they're very smart, maybe they're very serious people, but in this comedic universe that Martin has now in his dream, they do a bit more slapsticky stuff. They still have the pompous attitudes that keeps them there, right? And maybe Daphne Moon is British sitcom. Sometimes you get them on TV, are you being served? He's seen that. That's an aspect that comes into his life. So he's got American sitcom personalities, right? And Daphne Moon is this new character.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. So he's had an accident, he's had a fall, and he's imagining his reuniting with his sons, which he feels bad about because he has this bad relationship with his sons, but he's envisioning that in sitcom form. Yeah. But maybe his sons are actually at the hospital occasionally, and that's what's prompting these dream images. And maybe Daphne's just a nurse, and her voice is triggering in his brain and creating her in his images.
It might. And we got to think about the names as well. Daphne Moon? Cow jumped over the moon. Nursery rhyme, like you're asleep.
Okay, that's
incredibly
reaching. But what is on this show isn't?
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, I feel like the last names mean something. You got crane, you got moon. I feel like there's some meaning within cranes and moons, like maybe some sort of like ancient Chinese zodiac or something.
Who knows?
Who knows, right? There's a woman in the moon, apparently. Maybe it's Daphne Moon.
Okay, that pretty much brings us to the end of the episode, unless you have any more, Anthony.
No, I don't have any more. I've gone through all the submitted ones.
Okay, cool.
Well, at least I have. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Do you have any more?
No, I've run through them all.
Well, then we've gone through them all.
I'm trying to wrap up. If you want to contribute to these episodes, you can do that on the Abstract Nonsense Facebook page, or you can also talk to us on the Facebook group, the community group, where you can talk to us and get involved in the conversation and talk about your favorite theories for your favorite shows, suggest shows you want us to talk about. We're also available on most social medias as Abstract Nonsense, if you can find us there. And if you could find us on iTunes, give us a subscribe and a rating. That'd be awesome as well. Anything you want to say before we disappear?
The Blues are calling.
Yeah, well, I was waiting for you to make a scrambled eggs and tossed salad. Do you
Well,
like scrambled eggs?
Yeah, who doesn't?
I'm not a big fan of eggs.
Like, yeah, fair enough. I mean, you have to like eggs first, but scrambled eggs is fine. It's a fine meal. It's an easy meal to make.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you like tossed salad?
I do like tossed salad.
Do you like your salad tossed or untossed? That's a good question.
Tossed.
Well, of course. I mean, well, why wouldn't you?
Anyway, this was Abstract Nonsense. My name is Joe Lewis.
And I'm Anthony Bull.
Have a great week.
And I'm Anthony Bull.
You did say that.
Yeah, I know, but you do it to the microphone again.
That's not what I was doing. Anyway, I hope you have a Greek.
Yeah, I hope you have a Greek holiday. That'd be good.
Have a great week and stay abstract.